What's up, everybody, man? Thank you guys tuning in to another episode of Coach Code Podcast, and excited today. This woman has been instrumental in my life, especially on the endurance side of things. And I told the story over and over, crazy journey of Ironman, and had my first coach, and I still live by those rules, finish and don't die. And so those are kind of the foundational ground rules for everything endurance wise. And, had a great experience, great time with him. And then, kind of stepped aside, and it was just kind of a blessing being able to get connected and work with you, and got me through two more Ironman and 2 100 milers. So I know the endurance side of things would not be possible without you. So appreciate you jumping in and taking the time out of your hectic schedule to just chat it up a little bit today.
Well, it is absolutely my pleasure. This is a great opportunity, and I mean the feelings are mutual. I mean, I'm so glad that we were connected. And I mean, yeah, I've got the title of coach in the endurance side of things in our, coach athlete relationship. But man, I don't know if there's anybody more inspiring with what you've taken on in the endurance world, and just how you are, I mean, an example of grit and perseverance in all that you do. So it's an honor to be here.
I want to unpack that a little bit, because I think, for me, one of the things that I've really seen or experienced or uncovered is, just knowing that you could always push and do more. And even, in some of those, the later stages of those events and those races. And I would love to get your mindset and your perspective. And to me, it just always comes down to, a mindset. It always comes down to, the mental side of things. And I remember, there was a drive, a little bit different drive, a little bit different energy. And then, especially getting through Texas, and then getting to go back and do Florida, which I think was our first event together. And then we were all excited, right? We were going in 20, and I really mentally was done, I think, through that. And, I didn't want to do Tulsa, but the only reason I did Tulsa is because my dad was there and my sister was there and everybody was there. But mentally, I wasn't. I was completely checked out. It was a miserable experience. What was great was coming down the stretch, meeting you there in the street, getting up the hill, making the turn, and, all the families there, down the chute, and then, pizza with everybody and my dad afterwards. That made it great. But getting into, the mental side of things, for me, like, even completing, the Honey Badger race, it was like, I am not like, no matter what, I'm finishing, right? Like, there's no excuse, no done. This is my third attempt. Like, it is happening. And then this last go around with Keys, I was able to tap into my experience from previous events to get me through. Like I just knew. I was like, okay, I mean, I know what this feels like. I know this experience. I just keep moving, and it'll be over soon. That was for me, mentally, kind of where I have to tap into. And so, I would love to get kind of your take. I mean, you're, on another level, making the decision, mindset wise. I think this is even maybe a great place to start. Where do you mentally make that mindset to go kind of from that amateur status, amateur mindset to pro? I mean, that to me is a whole nother leap of faith, a whole nother, level of commitment to go from that type of amateur mindset to a pro mindset. Like, for you, I would love your take and, your experiences, but also all the other athletes you've been able to work with.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and I think a good place to start is just the importance of that mental state. And it has been amazing to me, and something that I've been very interested in to dive more into the mental fitness aspect of endurance sports. And I've actually been working with a sports psychologist for the past 3 years. And that was a decision that I made when I decided to go the professional route. And I knew that, okay, if I'm going to do this, this is going to take a big commitment, not only on the physical side of things, but I need to make sure that my mind is in the right place to really handle all of the training, to handle the shift in kind of the external pressures that I was feeling that even necessarily weren't there, but I perceived them to be there, of
Right.
like, oh my goodness, I'm stepping from an amateur into the professional ranks and I must perform better. I'm going to have to train harder. And, some of these even false ideas that I had in my head about that, I knew that I was going to have to work very specifically on that. And so actually, I mean, for me personally, working with a sports psychologist has been great, not only for my performance and making sure that I have that mindset that is strong, prepared, that stays positive, that really comes from a place of gratitude of what I'm able to do each day. And for me, that's a big part of it, is just, taking almost that step back and realizing this is a great opportunity and I have nothing to lose here and really everything to gain. And then that has helped me not only in my racing, but in working with other athletes and identifying, okay, what are some of these things that, physically were there, but mentally we still have this barrier or this self-doubt or this worry that we need to overcome before we get to the starting line, because there's no place to hide on race day. Everything comes up on race day. And so
Everything.
we need to conquer those thoughts and ideas, those self-doubts, those fears, those worries before we get to the starting line and address them so that those don't become what holds us back in the event on that day.
So what are some of the tools to kind of work through that? I mean, I mean, you and I have had enough conversations and everything to me it's relative to relationships. It's relevant to business. I mean, it's all, it's that whole, how you do anything is how you do everything. And,
Exactly.
principle based. So like working with somebody to really kind of help you work through, the mental self-doubt and those barriers. What are some tools that, you're able to utilize and fall back onto to kind of work through whenever that pops up? Because it's going to pop up. It's going to pop up in the middle. I mean, just right now, even thinking about, the swim at Tulsa, like, I mean, I was literally 15 minutes in and was like thinking how I can get out of the water and just what was going to be my excuse. And yet it was like one of those things, just like figure it out, right? Get into the cadence, get into the breathing, figure it out one stroke at a time. And, it was a terrible swim, but I survived. I didn't die and got through. But what are some really good tools that has helped you kind of work through any of that, mental block, any self-doubt?
I think one of the first things is to really acknowledge and recognize what those doubts are. And I mean, I'm very much a paper pencil, make lists kind of person. And so it's for me writing them out and saying, okay, these are the things that I'm not feeling confident in right now. And I mean, I can absolutely relate. We've talked about the swim before. I struggle with the open water swimming. I've got a lot of anxiety around that too. Had to overcome, I mean, a number of panic attacks getting started on the swim. And so that's something that is always on my list. It's like, I am worried I am going to panic in the swim. I'm worried I'm going to, not finish the first part of the race and be able to continue on to the bike and the run. And then it's looking at, okay, what is this self-doubt? And then finding a rebuttal statement and writing that out too. And a lot of that rebuttal statement comes from, I've practiced this in training. Like I've done this a number of times. I mean, for you, Tulsa becomes part of that rebuttal statement. It's like, I've had a swim that was not a necessarily good experience and I still got through it. Like I am going to be okay. I'm going to be able to problem solve. Yeah, maybe I have to float on my back for a little bit or rest on a kayak or breaststroke until the next buoy, but I'm going to get through this. The other thing that I've found to be a really, really good tool is to just have an ongoing like confidence resume of things that have gone well. Our minds have this way of really just focusing in on the negative And so one of the things that I do leading into any event that I'm doing, and I encourage athletes to do as well, is to write down things, in the past year, in the past events that they've done, in their past couple weeks of training that have gone well. And so they can draw back on those positive experiences, because when you're in a situation like that, you don't want your mind to go to the, oh my gosh, I'm panicking, this is terrible. We would rather it go to, I've been in this situation before. I know I can calm myself down. I've done this in training. Like I've done this in previous races. I'm going to be okay. And so just having those like positive experiences top of mind allows us to draw back on them. And so having them listed out, I mean, I even read it before I race. And that's something that it's like, okay, these are the positive things that I know that I've done. I'm going to carry it with me in my mind as I go forward. And I'm going to draw on these good things when things get hard.
No, I love that. I agree with it so much. And I was just like you said, it's the power of, the journaling aspect of it, right? Getting it out of your head and just writing it out, and then, having that, the flip on it, and being able to, I love that rebuttal statement, and really, and I think that works well with anything, right? Even
Oh, for sure.
with people, telling you can't do things, or the negative things that's coming from a different place that might not be true. However, you can put that spin on it, and it really does help. It really does. And so, for you, that mindset jump, I mean, is there really any difference, amateur to pro? Is it a different level of commitment? Like, and I think this applies even with people in business, am I just, playing small, or, what does it take to go from amateur to go pro? So kind of in your experience, and what have you seen in that difference in commitment, work effort? What is it that is like, hey, here's the key foundational principles. Like, you can play small, play amateur ball, but if you want to go pro, these are some of the things that you need to be committed to.
Mm-hmm. Kind of an interesting take that I've had on this, and this might not be, kind of what you would expect, but I would say that there are more similarities between my amateur racing and my pro racing than there are differences. And it's kind of like you said, how you do anything is how you do everything. And it's like those people that are going to be committed and just have that drive and that willingness, they're going to rise through the ranks. And, it's not necessarily a shift in mindset, but it's just that continued hard work and kind of the reward for the consistency and the drive. And it's like, if you keep working, if you keep chipping away, good things are going to happen. You are going to elevate. You are going to rise through the ranks. And, whether that be endurance sports or business, or, somebody that's got a weight loss goal. Yeah. If you are determined, if you're, chipping away at that goal, like, you're going to get there. You're going to rise above those hurdles that are holding you back, and you're going to make it. And that was one of the things that some of the coaches around me really supported and said, you've already got, the mindset, the drive, the willingness and the love to train, the love for the sport. Now it's just continued learning. And I think that's the key thing right there, is that growth mindset and the willingness to continue learning, to seek out new knowledge, to surround yourself with people that are smarter, are better. And that's one of the things that I find most valuable, is just the willingness to really seek out people that can guide you on that journey, and not settle for, oh, I think I know enough. Because once you think you know enough, that's where, we start to retract, and we don't continue our potential.
Yeah, no, I love that. You said a couple of things, one, it's that internal motivation. You said, love for the thing, and then just the continuous learning, right? Like it never stops. In the beginning though, or maybe even still now, right? You shift it to the continued learning, the love for the thing, but is there some type of intrinsic drive, right? Like kind of because, I'm continuing to push through this. I'm getting out of bed even when I don't want to, because for you, is there something that, is that kind of ignition, even when you don't want to get up and get in the pool?
Uh-huh. And that is true. I mean, I will admit that even this morning, I think I've still got goggle marks from our swim session earlier today, but the alarm went off. It's like, oh man, I mean, it's a cold and rainy morning here. And I'm like, man, jumping in that outdoor pool when it is cold and rainy, like that does not sound good. But yes, there is that kind of like intrinsic internal fire. And for me, it's not even necessarily like sport related. It's just like I want to be the absolute best version of myself.
Mhm.
And like, I want to continue learning. I want to see like how far I can go in this. And I have no idea what that end result is, but it's just that like excitement and desire to continue and to see what's next and to push the limits. And that's something that I feel like I've always had in like everything I've done. When I was in education, it was like, man, like I wanted to go to all of these like professional development things and, continue figuring out like different ways to, I mean, I was a math teacher at the time. And so it was like, I was, okay, what way can we, teach fractions in a different mindset so that, students can get it? Cause that was so tough. It's that same thing of just like, I want to be the best that I can be in whatever it is that I'm putting my mind to.
Was it that way in the beginning, or did that kind of evolve over time?
I think it's really evolved. I think it was always there a little bit, and that's something that I've actually, talked to my family about, and they point back to like, oh well, there was little sparks of that because kindergarten through college, I played soccer, and they're like, there were nights where we were still calling you in as you're in the backyard with all the cones, and it's dark outside, and I don't know how you can even see where you're going anymore. Like, okay, Elizabeth, like time to come inside and go to bed. And so there was always that drive of like, I wonder what that next level is.
Yeah, I think it's important for everybody, and it comes back down to, making sure whatever you're doing, you're doing it for yourself, right? They're your goals and
Mhm.
they're your ambitions, because if you're doing it for somebody else, it's not sustainable. That's what I found. And I've also, kind of have evolved even for me, you know, even what got me through Texas the first time was, I mean, literally, I just wanted my kids to be able to say my dad's an Ironman. I mean, literally, that was the reason that I did it. I just,
Mhm.
and even for Father's Day, I got, Ironman and, Zane, love you 3000. Right. So it's just like that has, carried over for, you know, what are we, 3-4 years out from Ironman. So still in their mind
Mhm.
with that. But I'm with you, right? It's kind of continued to evolve. And one of the things that I could tell is really, being able to I've when you just do hard stuff, I mean, it just humbles you.
Yes.
And it really just it just kind of strips you away to where, okay, what's really what's important. And so for me, that has been the drive, right? Is always, pushing for more,
Mhm.
pushing to become a better version of yourself, but also to stay humble and being able to, lower, lessen the blind spots for
Mhm.
me. But just like you said, that evolved. It wasn't that way, right? It was my dad's an Ironman, and then it was like, okay, we said we were going to do Florida, we're doing Florida. And just little things that tap into. But I've noticed over even the last couple years, it's more of what you said. It's more of, okay, how can I be better? And but I don't think it just starts out that way. I think you have to have some type of ignition, and there's something in the beginning, that allows that to unfold.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's interesting.
It is. Yeah, it is. And I feel like, that beginning or that ignition can be a lot of different things for people. I mean, I've found in working with a lot of coached athletes that, they have a very different story of how they've started. And some of it might be, somebody told them they couldn't, or they had a dream that they wanted to, or, they had a health scare and are like, I've got to turn things around. Some of it comes from a positive place, some of it comes from a negative place. And so that ignition piece might look very different for everybody, but it's something that like triggers this desire to be better than you were before, and to, I mean, live a life that is inspiring to others, or is allowing you to be available for others or your family. It's interesting because there's so much that is the same and central about, the desire to be the best version of ourselves, but it can come from a different place for each person as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's just not fighting it. I think it's just kind of leaning into it and see if it is right. And I think the negative side of it, you can't do this or you're not good enough. I think it's a great short-term burst of ignition. But I still think it's important to find something that's more sustainable. And
For sure. Yes.
what is it, right? And like you said, it's different for everybody. And sometimes, it's trying to make somebody proud, right? Hey, my dad's an Ironman, right? So that's kind of the burning, longevity of it. It's not necessarily a short burst, but it can be a little more sustainable. For you, I would love your take on this because, coming in, in the athlete role and then getting in the coaching role, like what pushed you to do that? And then you're still player coach. I mean, and, kind of toggling back and forth between the two, but, what for you was like, hey, I want to get into this coaching dynamic and not just stay in the athlete role.
Mhm.
And then vice versa. Like for you, how did that decision come about?
I think that there's always been a great desire to be a coach. And some of that is, like I want to pursue as much as I can as an athlete, and I want to continue learning for myself, but then that only benefits me. And so it's like, okay, how can I use what I have done in sport and the people that I've connected with and learned from to really share that knowledge and that experience beyond just my personal benefit? And that was a huge part of it for me. And that actually began when I was still playing soccer. And I had the opportunity in college to be a soccer coach. And it was like, man, like that was something that I don't know if I saw coming, but when the opportunity presented itself, it was very much, I mean, a person that's like, okay, if an opportunity presents itself, I'm going to think about it. I'm going to see, what I could gain from this experience. And so I said yes to that and absolutely loved it. I actually got so much more joy from coaching than even playing, which was a little bit of an initial surprise to me because this had been the sport that I loved since kindergarten. And so then to have that shift and be like, wow, like this is an opportunity for me to influence the game in a number of ways, and connect with people and see just how they can grow not only through sport, but what they're doing on the field and the confidence that they're building from this that they take outside of the pitch as well. And so when I had the chance to start coaching triathlon, it was like this perfect mirror of, or perfect blend of my love of education and my love of sport again. And it
Yeah.
was like, okay, I know that, this coaching role is neat. And it seemed very fitting for me. Some of the initial experiences that I had working with athletes were so positive, and I just found that I looked forward to that sometimes even more than my own training. And so it was something that's like, I want to keep pursuing the sport also just to have a good understanding of what athletes are going through. I feel like a lot of the experiences that I've had as an athlete have prepared me to be a better coach, to have those races where, I'm panicking in the water. Okay, that allows me to relate to athletes that come through with, that same concern. Or I felt like I was going into my last event so well prepared, and I really just struggled through it. And it's like that experience really helps me prepare to talk to athletes that, maybe have had a similar experience versus them saying like, oh, well, you don't get it. Like, you're always performing well, or, hey, you've never done the sport. And I'm not saying that every coach has to have that experience. I mean, there are fantastic coaches that, aren't necessarily in the sport themselves or at the same level as their players. That isn't necessary, but I feel like for me, it has been a really good learning opportunity.
How has it made you better on both, right? I think it's the empathy side of things. You're able to empathize with the athlete as the coach, but being the coach, how has that made you a better athlete?
It has motivated me more than anything else. I mean, to see my athletes go through, balancing family and job and, their own training. It's like, man, if they're doing this, I have no excuse not to get my stuff done.
Yeah.
And, same thing on the race course when they're pushing through and I know that they're giving it 110%. It's like, well, I better be doing my part too. And on the race course, I better give in my 110%, because they're going to ask. I mean, you texted me after the race, like, hey, how'd it go? And it's like, I want to be able to answer honestly, like, I gave it my all. And just, I mean, I think who you surround yourself with is so important. And I would say that the athletes that I coach are some of the best inspiration and motivation that I get on a daily basis.
I love that. And, and I think to not taking anything away, the value of having a great coach. And it's just for those little things, right? To bounce things off of. And we all have blind spots to be able to point things out that we might not be thinking about. And sometimes, we get through challenging things kind of on our own. Some people can only take it so far, right? And some can take it further than others. They can stress their way to a certain point. And, it was, and I'm seeing it a lot in real estate right now, right? With the real estate agents, and it's the whole being rewarded for bad behavior. And, when the market, anybody and everybody, that has a pulse, buying a house, it's like, it's just, you get into a reactive state and you think you're doing better than what you really are. And so that's where, making sure you have a great goal, right? Making sure that you've got a great plan and making sure you've got a great team around you to support you, to execute on the plan in pursuit of your goal. And that works in anything. And so, even for me, getting through first marathon, on my own and figuring it out and, printing out a training program and going with it. I'm not saying that that's bad. It's just that it can lead to a lot of bad ripple effects. And so I was even doing the Ironman and, just a couple months out and like, I am lost. Like, I don't even know what a transition is. Like, how do I get my bike to Florida? Just all the little things. And, it's just that realization is like, dummy. I mean, you're a coach. I mean, like you have to have a coach to be able to get you through that. And so I think that's a big jump for a lot of people is just, it's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength that, hey, I need some help here. And if I truly want to be better and, continue this on, then I need some help. And I think when we say part of the team, having a great coach is really a critical part of that, for sure.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I get that question a lot since I am a coach. They're like, well, why do you have a triathlon coach? And it's like, oh, I don't coach myself. Like I don't do that because I've got blind spots in my own training. I need, that objective opinion. I need somebody guiding it for me. I love doing that for others. But no, I'm not going to coach myself. I want that mentorship. I want that guidance. And I've always found that to be beneficial. And so, yeah, when people are like, wait, you're a coach, but you have a coach, it's like, absolutely, 100%, always will.
Yeah, always. And I think, talking about mindset, coach, plan, love, everything that we've kind of touched on, there's always setbacks
Mhm.
and there's always struggles. And kind of on the athlete side of things, injury is one of those. And I know, that's what kind of has been a setback for you and kind of set you back in dealing with that. And can you kind of share and talk through just kind of everything that we've kind of thrown out? Is that, for you, how did you kind of deal with that process with it and continue to push forward? And what was it last week? First race
Mhm.
since kind of that setback. And so I, I would love to just, because, there's a lot of real estate agents that will listen to this conversation, and, a lot of them are dealing with setback right now. And I think, being able to hear, how you were able to kind of overcome that and work through it, and then being able to, remarkable, what you were able to do, with the race last week, I think it's really great. There's some really great nuggets and some inspiration in there that's definitely worth sharing.
Yeah. So I did. I spent most of last year on the sidelines with a couple different significant injuries, and it was mentally very, very hard. And so I think that, I mean, that's one of the first things to acknowledge is yes, setbacks are going to happen, and it's okay to feel upset and frustrated by that because you know that you're not in the place right now where you want to be. But it's also important to acknowledge that you're not stuck there. And one of the most important things that I did was seek out the help of my coach and build that team around me that had the resources to help me rehab in a way that would get me back. I mean, as fast as possible, but also in a way that was healthy. And
Right.
so, I mean, I had a fantastic conversation with my coach, and she had gone through, I mean, setbacks in her professional career as well. And so having somebody to talk to that has been through the setback and also has come out on the other side of it and says, yes, this is a low point right now. And we're going to acknowledge that this is not fun. This is hard. This is upsetting. Yes, there can be tears and a little frustration, but we are going to kind of map our way out of this valley. And having that reassurance, having that conversation was great. She had a network of resources that she could connect me to. And so that was also very important for me because I'm sitting there going, I'm just kind of in an emotional state right now where I feel the setback and I can't necessarily look at this from the objective point of view of, who do I need to go to next? How do I map out this journey back to the starting line and out of this valley where she could say, okay, I'm in the driver's seat now. Like, here's who I want you to go and see. Here's what we're going to do, for the next 2 weeks. Then we're going to get this opinion and we could really kind of make a roadmap out of that setback, which was a huge mental win for me, just knowing like, okay, these are the steps that I'm going to take to get there. And maybe it doesn't fall, perfectly in line with what the plan is, but at least I can see that there's a plan or a trajectory out of this emotional state where I am right now. um, the network of people that I connected with through that time was huge. And it's something that even though I'm back racing and I'm healthier now, like I am still connected with those people. And they have great resources that are continuing to help me not only in my racing, but now I've been able to refer other athletes to them. And so it's, this great community of people that are just there to build one another up and help problem solve. And when you get together in a network with people that are willing to lift you up, to listen to your concerns, to help you problem solve, I mean, good things happen. And if you just, continue to do what you need to do day by day, I mean, each day it doesn't feel like you're making much progress, but pretty soon you look back, you're like, oh my gosh, 3 months ago, I couldn't even do that.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's something that, I saw in the classroom all the time, with students that they're like, oh, I'm not getting this. Oh, I'm not getting this. And they continue to practice and practice. And pretty soon they're doing it. And it's like, hey, can we just take a step back and acknowledge like this was super hard for you, like, 2 weeks ago or a month ago. And so I think just being able to focus on those little steps and those daily wins is wonderful. And then having somebody that points you back and says, hey, look at how far you've come.
Yeah.
And that's one of the big things that, I mean, happened in this race. I didn't perform as well as I wanted to, but I had a whole, team of people around me saying, yeah, but you're back at the starting line. Like, you ran a marathon off the bike again. Okay, so it wasn't your fastest, but could you do that last year? No, like you were stuck on the couch in a boot. So let's celebrate, the wins, and we're still building. We're
Yeah.
still continuing to work through that. Yeah, it's a mental valley, but having the right team around you and people that are willing to problem solve is so critical.
100%, right? It's so important to focus more on how far in the progression that we're making, how far we've really come, than, how far away we still have to go. But
Mhm.
to that same kind of thought, how important is it to have something working towards?
Oh, I think it's huge. Um, and this is something that I feel like we found a lot of during the pandemic, when all of a sudden, I mean, especially in endurance sports, people were like, what am I working toward?
Mhm.
Like, what am I going to do? Like, are races ever going to come back? Like, should I keep training? Should I not? Should I, devote my efforts somewhere else? Um, I think having that goal is super important. And I've always thought of that. I made my students in the classroom set goals, weekly, monthly, quarterly. I mean, for the end of the year, what do you want to do? It's something that for me, like I've got, goals for each training session that I have, and, what I want to do by the end of the year, what I want to do 5 years from now. So working toward something and having, I feel like, a very clear intention just makes it very specific in terms of like, this is what I'm setting out to do. I'm going to do it. I think that's important for the mindset part of it as well.
Yeah, intentional and measuring progress, how far we've come, what are we working towards? And I think the other thing, and this is, the questions that I would always get, being, in kind of the TriDot, community, and how the trainings are designed and the links and the intent around it. Always the pushback that or not even really pushback, but the questions was like, how are you going to do that distance with that? Shouldn't you be doing more? Shouldn't you be doing more work? And so I would love, like, what's enough, right? It's the whole, is it the, minimum effective dose? Like, how much is enough? How much is too much? And, being able to everybody's goals and bodies, are different, but
Mhm.
like, is enough? What's enough?
So this is such a good question, and I love the like science and the like training design behind all of this from the endurance sports world. Um, but I think there's so much that applies just to life in general. And it's like, you need to do the work. And so we're not, looking to cut corners. We're not looking to, do the minimum necessarily. Like, we want a good amount of quality work, and the quality there is the big part of it. There
Mm,
are people that, train for events and will spend, 35 hours a week, but they're not very intentional about what they're doing. There
Right.
are people that will, read a whole bunch of books and just a whole bunch of random articles, random things that, they feel like are going to help them perform better in whatever it is that they're doing. But they don't necessarily have an intentional path that they're following either. And so it's like, we want it to be work that is putting like a deposit in the bank, but we're not doing so much that we're depleting all of our resources either. And so, I mean, time is a super valuable resource. And so if we can put a little more intensity into a run session and kind of shave that down into, 2 hours versus somebody being out there for 3.5 hours, you might be able to get the same training effect from those 2 sessions, depending on how they're structured. And I tell you what, most athletes would say, yeah, like give me the one that's a little less time, because that's going to be a quality workout. Oh, and I can still make it to, dinner with my spouse when I'm done.
Right.
And so I think there's an important key to that too. And that's why it's so tricky to answer, because it does depend on every individual athlete. And that's part of why I like it so much, and looking at like, how much stress their body can handle, what their kind of history is in the sport. A lot of that will dictate, does this athlete need, 15 hours a week? Do they need 20 hours a week? Do they need 22 hours a week? How long are they going to be on the race course? That also, may determine how long those sessions need to be. And so it's very much still a case by case basis, but it's like, we want to do the amount of work that allows for quality over quantity, but still prepares the athlete in a way to feel physically and mentally confident when they're at the starting line. And so there's that mental component as well to it. And this is something, I mean, that my coaches and I have worked on, because sometimes the physical preparation is there. And I'm like, you know what? It's probably going to be fine, but mentally, I want to do that 22-mile run just so that I'm at the starting line mentally ready to go too. So I feel like I didn't answer the question and instead gave a bunch of like examples here, but it's tricky.
I think you nailed it. I think, seeing, decent, good, great coaching it all starts back to, understanding the role as a coach that you take in the relationship. And I just have seen, just even on the business side, and a lot of coaches, they want the limelight. They want to be the hero. And that's not the role. The role is to be there, support and help the athlete, help the client, get to where they want to go. And, that's the key. And I think, understanding that from a coaching perspective, a coaching dynamic, it ain't about you. It's about, the goal. It's about the athlete. It's about the client. It's about them. And, we're just there to get them from where they are to where they want to go. And, I think it's just a great reminder. And you can put yourself in a bunch of those situations, right? I'm just even thinking through, the importance of like, even on these endurance runs, the long runs, your crew, how critical it is, who you have there, and, how they're there to support you to get to the goal. And so there's all these little opportunities to put yourself in that position, either as a coach or as a support, but it's all about the client. It's all about the athlete, and being clear first and foremost what their goal is and what they're wanting to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. That was so well said.
Yeah. Coach, you're amazing. And I really appreciate you taking the time out, jumping in here, and getting into the head side of things. And it's just because, to me, that's where it starts, right? You can have all the tools, resources, you can have everything available to you, but if you can't, win the mind game, it's not going to be fun. And you may never even put your toe on the starting line.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Appreciate you. Awesome. we'll catch you guys next time. See ya.